Welcome to the Content Podcast, conversations with Silicon Valley's creatives. I'm Daniel Garcia, your host and the cultivator of Content Magazine, published by SV Creates. Today we talk with Chad Johnston. He's the CEO of CreaTV San Jose. Hey Chad, how you doing? This is Daniel.
Hey, how are you?
I am doing well. It's good to hear your voice. I was trying to think like the last time I saw you, and then I was trying to think even like I don't even think I've seen you in a Zoom. Like a lot of our paths cross over.
I know. What's up with that?
I know. Well, where have you been? What have you been doing?
What do you mean, what have I been doing? I've been doing what everyone else is doing. Sheltering in place, staring at Zoom calls, all by my lonesome here in Japantown, San Jose.
Yeah. So now we have a lot to talk about, to catch up on personally, but also just with CreaTV and all that. And especially, I mean, this, like I said, I probably haven't seen you in a year, and this last year has been eventful. And
crazy pants.
Yeah, crazy.
Some might call it crazy pants.
Crazy pants, yeah. And what you're doing with CreaTV, public access television, has definitely a role in culture and society. Let's just start out first. What is the value and the reason for public access television, and especially in light of all that has transpired in 2020?
Sure, just a little question.
Yeah.
Originally the role for public access television way back when, 40 some years ago, was to provide the community with a platform that was sort of an electronic green space.
Yeah.
When people didn't have access to cameras and microphones and TV stations, right? It was this First Amendment platform where anyone could come in and do the dog grooming show or talk about their church or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's a powerful thing. I mean, to this day, I don't know how many people you know that have a TV station, but San Jose does, right? Our community has a TV station, but it has changed. The values have changed along with the access to technology, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here we are sitting on a computer recording a podcast, right? And 30 years ago, that would have required gobs and gobs of machinery and being in person and all those things. But regardless of the access piece, the need for communities to tell their own stories is even more important than ever, right? I mean, we've seen I don't even want to think about the last 4 years, but we saw a really challenging period of dominant narratives from a dominant class. And our goal now, our values now, are to say who is not telling a story, who is not challenging this narrative. How do we find them and how do we support them? So that we can counter this. I'll use the word again. So we can counter these kind of crazy pants things that people are talking about. So that, I mean, the notion of public access hasn't changed. The technology has changed. And we've had to evolve to say, well, the old motto used to be first come, first serve, First Amendment. And we've had to say, well, it's not necessarily first come, first serve, because some people are just let out. And frankly, the First Amendment also has those same power dynamics where some people it's been easier for them to speak than others. So this year's just kind of reinforced for us the importance of equity to access and equity to narrative within technology and media.
Yeah. So then for for the structure and the makeup then for Create TV and as well as public access, then what does that mean as me as Johnny citizen? What's the services that are available to me? What's the opportunities that I have then for my voice through Create TV?
It's sort of in three different interactions, right? It's like the lowest form is, or not lowest, but the
Entry level.
easiest entry level is like, Daniel, you make a podcast or a YouTube show, or you're making content. We want to help you distribute that content and to a really specific audience,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's going to be to San Jose
Mm-hmm.
via our 4 cable channels and our YouTube page and those sorts of things.
Yeah.
The next level is like, you want to learn how to make a TV show or a podcast or a GIF even.
Yeah.
We offer a whole suite of classes that are, these days no more than $25.
Yeah.
Where you can learn how to do that stuff. And it's not only the technology, but it's also the literacy. So how do you tell a compelling story, but also how do you use the technology needed to do that?
Yeah.
And then at the sort of deepest level, it's long form education specifically rooted in equity that helps people tell stories, and I also get mentoring, like really deep mentoring through that process.
Mm-hmm.
So we have 120 hours with 15 youth over the summer where they learn all the ins and outs of documentary filmmaking, and they get to choose issues around social justice. Or we have an adult version of that, that's over 10 weeks.
Yeah.
Or we create partnerships with organizations to help them either build their staff's capacity to tell those stories over a long-term relationship, or we partner with Aki and the School of Arts and Culture to do these like year-long projects where we're just trying to assist them in getting messages out.
Yeah.
So it's from the simple, give us your content, we'll help you get more eyeballs on it, to, hey, let's build and create, and we'll give you all the cameras and tools and Zoom classes till your heart's content.
Yeah, it is. It's really interesting because it's such a great TV and public access for different communities and stuff that have it. The access for education and for telling your stories, or getting trained to tell your stories, and even just to get your information or your point of view or your story out there is incredible. But I don't think that most people living out in the suburbs necessarily know that they have this kind of tool. And even one of the largest contracts, if I'm correct, as far as public access, and I don't know how it all works with the government in the city, but you record the exciting council members, the council meetings and stuff like that too, right? Isn't it part of? Yeah.
I mean, ultimately, we're trying to use media for civic engagement, right? And so, particularly now, right over the last year, getting access to government meetings, is crucial. Think about how many decisions have we been trying to make during a pandemic, during an economic crisis, during racial equity. These huge conversations, right? These are all happening in government meetings. So we work with the city, we work with the county to make sure those meetings get distributed.
Which is great.
But then it's also
I mean, that means as a citizen that you can actually see what is going on, and then not even use a news source necessarily to get what the conversations are, right? It's empowering.
No, it's completely almost everything we do is completely unfiltered, right? We don't do editorial content. We do the facilitation of getting the message, getting the tools, getting the distribution.
Yeah.
That's our bread and butter. We're not a news source, and we'll never be one. And
So,
I'm happy with, frankly, I'm happy with that, Daniel. I'd rather Daniel tell me what his life experience is and learn that his voice is just as powerful as the mayor's voice
yeah.
than I would us sort of make these like editorial decisions around. I
Yeah.
mean, we're already 12 minutes in, man. You're going to take me down to 15? Like, that's
Yeah.
power right there is what that is. We want to give people that power for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool. I do. I mean, I really want to just talk to you just about like that whole intersection between information, journalism, media, technology, activism, like try to get some thoughts on that. But I want to ask you one thing is like, I'm always fascinated on the dialogue, and maybe you can speak about this from your point of view of working with CreaTV and public access, is that the both sides, the left and the right, both complain that there's control over the messages, right? I know there's a song by John Mayer that I totally love. It says like when you control the media, you control, what's going on and all this kind of stuff. And it's really interesting that the left is complaining that the right is owning the message, and the right is complaining that the left is owning the message. I find that really, what's your kind of, who owns the message? What's going on here? Who's telling the truth? And what is the truth now that we mention it? No.
Oh, let's stay away from what is the truth, because that's complicated. I mean, the fact is, we live in a democracy driven by capitalism, right?
Mm.
And the five companies that own all the media in our country, they're driven by a bottom line, and so there's a sort of false narrative around the right has more, the liberal left owned all the media, which is
Right.
insane if you really look at it. But that's all spin and driven by, I got to raise money to win an election, or I have to sell some commercials for my 24-hour news station.
Yeah.
And with so few folks being the gatekeeper of that, it doesn't matter if it's more left or more right. What matters is that we as a society and as a community really have very few places to be who we are within media.
Yeah.
To tell authentic stories. I mean, well, the ultimate thing is it's a false narrative to say that the left or the right have more media or more
Control.
Space to talk or more control. It's driven by profit and not by public good.
Yeah.
And that's part of the reason that we were created initially, was to make sure, again, that sort of electronic green space, right?
Yeah.
And we've learned too, like YouTube and Twitter and whatever, these aren't public spaces. These are corporations that own these things, and they can make decisions. They can push you one direction or another, right? And that's their prerogative. We as a public, it's like a public park, right?
Yeah.
You can go to a park and have a picnic or play volleyball or do whatever you want. It's your space. It's public.
Yeah.
That's different than going to Santana Row, right? Which feels kind of public.
Right. It gives you the facade of being public. Yeah.
The facade of public, which
Yeah.
is much of what news and journalism is a facade of public good. But it's unfortunately, it's not that.
Yeah.
Does that cheer you up?
Well, no, I have I definitely have my understanding of how that works. That's my whole kind of thing. I mean, even with us, like we don't do news. We're, profiles. We want to let people have their voice and tell their stories, whoever they are, as long as they're kind of like in the creative realm, right? But I realize even in that, with only having, 4 issues a year and 78 pages, somebody's in and somebody's out. So there is a bit of editorial
Certainly.
censorship, if you will, going into it. We try not to do it censorship, but we try to fit around a theme. So, and try to get to everybody. But I think that's the thing that people don't realize is that everything that is said, there's also something that isn't said, right?
Certainly. Well, and I mean, there's a difference between you being clear about what you're trying to do. We're trying to highlight the creative community around a specific focus.
Yeah.
This is around sound. This is around moving image. This is around, right?
Yeah.
And the challenge with journalism or mass media here is that they're not purporting to do anything. they're saying we're unbiased or we're just trying to entertain you, but the mission and vision isn't as clear as what you're doing. Yeah, things get left out. That's it's because you have a clear vision of what you're trying to do, right?
Yeah, time, time and budget.
Well, time and money,
yeah.
are important.
Yeah. So now, okay. So during COVID, well, I know there's a lot of things in the works with CreaTV. There's some potential different spaces, I believe. I know that you guys have been moving. You know, technology has definitely changed it. Distribution of channels. Would you say? What's some of the recent challenges that you feel like that you're facing most with CreaTV, with getting this, you know, the people to tell their stories?
I mean, like everyone else, COVID is a challenge. Social distancing, doing everything remotely is a challenge.
Yeah.
You know, if you want folks that normally, I mean, the reason we want people to learn to tell their own story is yeah, the story is important, but there's also a transformation that happens in an individual who has historically not felt that their story or voice was important or that they had power, right? And so teaching them to use a camera and say how much they love gardening or how much they wish their healthcare was better or their housing was more affordable. That ultimately like kind of changes their position of power just by learning that, right? They go, well, fuck, if I can do that, I can. What else can I do?
Yeah.
And doing that, trying to do that kind of building with community is really hard to just do it online.
Yeah.
Lots of folks we work with, you know, their computer is their phone, and to spend 2 hours on a class or 3 hours on a class eats up their data. You know, that's challenging. We're trying to get out. We have all these Wi-Fi free hotspots for youth, and it's like, how do we even reach them? Because they're, you know, so on the flip side, people.
So wait, well, let me take. Do you actually have like little hotspot devices? Is that what you're saying that you can give to people that would work at no charge? They can rent them or use them as members or something like that. Is that what you mean?
Like right now I have, because of the Best Buy Foundation and our work with the city of San Jose's digital inclusion fund. I mean, I have 50 hotspots that are dedicated to youth that have either they're under accessed or have no access to high speed internet, and they can have them free for a year, and then if they want to keep them, it's like $14 or something like that a year.
Oh my gosh!
So
that's incredible. What a resource.
Well, yes, it is.
Yeah.
But it's hard to find those families that need that support.
Yeah, right? If you're not connected into the internet, you're not going to get the email. That gives you
exactly. And there's a ton of groups that are doing this in San Jose. I mean, the city is doing great work. The libraries, there's all these groups that have resources like that, but they're having the same thing, right? Like normally, pre-pandemic, we were just going to go to Hillview Library and work with youth every weekend, and we'd hang out with them and we'd learn, and then they'd get a hotspot and an iPad and we'd be like, yay.
Yeah.
But now
Can't go.
it's
Yeah.
much harder to connect with those communities.
Yeah.
Um,
What do you think
so
then with these challenges of this having to be social distance and with your services that are so, like most of us, like really embedded into human connection, um, what do you see SV Create has learned? Excuse me, SV Create.
I was like, wow,
Wait, that's me.
now I'm running that
Yeah,
organization
right.
too. Shit.
Congratulations. um, Create TV for Create TV. Like, what's morphed that you think you're going to take into the next couple years because of the social distance and the pandemic?
Um, I mean, one thing is, right when this started, our team all came together and we are like, how do we help? What do we do?
Yeah,
And our knee jerk reaction was we retooled cable channel 30 to the outlet, and as opposed to having to be a member and come to an orientation and all these things, we just retooled that channel so that anyone can submit anything.
cool.
And our industry, our field sometimes can be a little stiff because we contract with cities,
Yeah,
and cities base those contracts off of federal law and state law, and by the time you get all that stuff put together, our field can be we're a little risk averse,
yeah,
right?
sure.
We're like, I got this law and that law, but I think opening the outlet sort of
It's good.
um, was good. And we connected with people we would have never connected with, and got content we would have, no one would have ever thought to submit to us. And so I think it just relaxed us in a way to say, like, oh,
Hmm.
whatever, like, let them in. Like, what does it matter?
Yeah,
This is our community. And if they want to become a member and they want to take a class, even better.
yeah,
But whatever, we have these resources. So I think moving forward, we sort of think of these like old power models of like, you have to get certified by doing 16 hours of coursework, and then you get access to a Sony A7. And
yeah.
that's our sort of old model. And the new power model is like, do you want a camera? Okay, see you Friday at 2 and we'll drop it off in your car. Like, you don't want to learn about it with like in our classes, you just want to gain access. Cool. Let us figure out a way to do that.
Yeah,
Um, so I think we're going to carry that forward no matter what. And
yeah,
it's still a balancing act, but,
sure.
um, and I think also, there's no harm in doing these like virtual remote things.
Yeah,
Um, it's more, um, it's another sort of avenue to like, how do we open this up to more people? How do
yeah,
we get access to even more people? And so in the future, I'm sure we will have, oh, it'll be so much fun to have, 10 people in a room making media together.
yeah,
Um, but I'm willing to bet we'll also have a screen in the corner that's connected to Zoom, and there's four other people, in their living rooms with the same equipment trying to learn how to use it.
yeah,
And,
yeah,
that's great.
yeah.
Um,
That's kind of cool. I mean, it is interesting. I mean, it must be a crazy dance or tightrope to walk when you have government funding and trying to do something. Yeah, I mean, that's just it means red tape, lawyers, all kinds of stuff, right? But I see what you're saying. If you kind of open it up, somebody said might just want to come in and say, "Well, I just want to use a camera," right? If they use the camera, there's a lot of things they probably don't know about it, and then by just even using it, they're going to be coming back to say like, "Hey, and by the way, I couldn't figure out how
right.
this worked."
Right. What's an f-stop? And you're like,
Right.
cool. Why don't you come to the depth of field class?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess it's
Yeah.
the scarcity or abundance kind of mentality, right? In some ways. Um,
Yeah, I think, I don't know. I mean, the contracts we have with cities, they ask us they ask us to report on things that are really output based.
Sure.
So
Yeah.
so they say, how many pieces of equipment did you give out, and how many people came to your classes, and how many hours of content did you air?
Yeah.
And if you think totally and from that mindset, you do really want to have a lot of safeguards up, because you're protecting these assets, right?
Yeah.
That help you report on this contract. But if you step just, not even one step back, the contract also says, hey, you've got to serve the community, and you, we actually want you to look for special groups and folks that are not, that may be underserved. And
Yeah.
it doesn't take too much to say, I'm willing to bet the city would be like pretty pleased if we worked with underrepresented communities, and if we lost a camera because someone didn't know how to use it and they broke it,
Yeah.
whatever. We sat with Vietnamese elders and taught them how to use their iPhones, or we
Yeah.
worked with youth from the East Side who like made these amazing documentaries about housing, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
it's fine. It's a culture shift for us, right, to get out of that, um, mentality that we're just kind of a government services
Yeah.
agency.
It's hard. I mean, I completely understand, especially, grant reports and all those kind of things, because, people who have pockets, deep pockets and big hearts, they do want to, checks and balances to make sure that their money's not just being burnt up. So, but it's
Certainly.
different. Like, how do you really put tangible matrix and data to, you know, empowering the community, right? Is it purely how many cameras go out, or purely how many hours of television? Or is it, like you said, it was, you know, being with those people in the community? Yeah. Yeah.
It's somewhere in the middle, right? It is the qualitative and the quantitative. We're
Yeah.
our Documentary Me program. You know, um, this year we took five because it was virtual and we didn't have as much funding this year, but we took five LGBTQ, uh, adults who had an interest in learning storytelling
Mm-hmm.
and documentary filmmaking, and we mentored them, and gave them all the equipment. And over 10 or 12 weeks, they created these pieces, and we can look at some of that data, right? Like at the beginning, 50% of them knew how to use an iPad. At the end, 100% of them knew how to use, right?
Yeah.
But then you also look at this sort of other set of data where, I mean, I've heard this is our second year, and I've heard this twice, where it's like, I've never been able to be in a group that is just the group I identify with
Mm.
and learn.
Hmm.
And like that's some powerful stuff to me, right? Like you just you just created an environment where someone felt comfortable,
Yeah.
truly, truly comfortable learning.
Yeah.
And uh, that's not precise data,
Yeah.
but there's both sides of the coin. The qualitative and the quantitative are there. Um,
Yeah.
and I, when people see the screening or they see the filmmakers present their work,
Yeah. That's
you
awesome.
don't need to see the data.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like you see that kid who's like, I don't really want to do filmmaking, but now I really want to change the world. And you're
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay, cool,
It's kind of funny.
job done.
It's almost the reporting on how to get the community empowered to tell stories is actually to tell the story of how the people, right? It's the storytelling. Um.
And yeah,
Yeah.
and yeah, we're we're notoriously bad at that too, unfortunately. Telling our own story and telling the story of how we help people.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It's difficult.
we're
Yeah.
getting better.
Yeah. So now, tell me the Documenter Me, that's a relatively new program, right? Or is it
Yeah.
repackaging? Tell me about that. What's involved in that?
No, a couple years ago, um, we had a pretty deep sort of strategic planning process, and one thing out of that we realized we were really good at some things. Like, we're really great at making media for nonprofits and local governments. We do that on a sliding scale. Mm-hmm. We get nothing but praise. Our staff is amazing. But we saw opportunity in the education where we'd sort of been teaching from a real technical standpoint, right? Mm-hmm. So if you're a producer, like one of my staff producers, and someone comes in and sort of willy-nilly frames up a shot or zooms in too quick, they're like, what the heck? So we had to separate that sort of technical expertise, and think about what is it about this education process, right, that really helps people and helps impact their lives. And so we did a deep dive on focusing on education, and specifically with sort of an equity lens on that, like, who doesn't own media, who's not involved in tech. Like, we looked at one study that was the San Jose Mercury News. Over 10 years, the city has become exponentially diverse, and yet the editors have become exponentially not diverse.
Yeah.
And so we sort of used that framework to start designing programs that would do more of the mentoring, more of the storytelling, more of the sort of how do we use media ultimately to build community and get people civically engaged. Mm-hmm. We want to change the world through media. That's the big vision, right?
Yeah.
So we started small. So we converted a summer camp where kids used to pay, $300 for 2 weeks to learn a thing. And we converted that to a youth employment project where we hire 12 San Jose Works students, mm-hmm. and they get to learn documentary filmmaking. That's their summer internship.
Yeah.
Which,
awesome.
Frankly, I would have loved that. And yeah. And Documenter Me is the same kind of concept. We actually test piloted like a little tiny program called Doc In, Doc Out. And it was meant to be just a 5-week crash course in documentary filmmaking and the subject was to profile an arts organization who didn't have a marketing budget. And we said it's free to apply. And we had in a day, we had 30 or 40 applicants. And we were like, cool.
Yeah.
I guess people want to learn how to do this. So we started the adult version of that. And the first 2 years we focused on the LGBTQ community because there wasn't anything like that in San Jose. Oakland and San Francisco have very similar programs. Mm-hmm. But we saw that as an underserved community here in San Jose. Next year, it's going to be blown wide open. And we're basically saying, priority access is to communities of color, low-income communities, mm-hmm. New American communities, underrepresented communities. So it'll be an even broader cohort of folks that traditionally haven't had the ability or the power or the knowledge or the tools, right, to actually share their perspective.
Yeah, that's cool.
And it's not even always, Daniel, it's not even always about their perspective on their situation. Do you know what I mean? It's also about how do we ultimately diversify and make the media and tech environment, ecosystem, industry, how do we make that ultimately more diverse and truly representative of who we are?
Okay.
So that's behind or in front of the screen, that's the writers, that's the runners, that's the directors, that's the actors, right? And
yeah.
So we're just trying to we're trying to chip away at that slowly but surely, and in many ways,
yeah, it's
cool that they get to make a film, but we hope it will either push them into the industry in some shape or form, or sort of get them more engaged in other ways that didn't have anything to do with media making, but had to do with, oh,
yeah,
well, okay, I do have power. You're right.
yeah,
Cool. That to us is what equity is, right? Like our approach to equity is about shifting, giving people tools to shift their position of power.
yeah, yeah,
Because systems are deep, and particularly media. But
yeah.
anyways, sorry,
Yeah, no, 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 it's
you
totally cool.
got me going.
No, no, it's awesome. I mean, that was the thing I wanted to. This leads into very much kind of like the more topic is like the activism part. And for you personally, how did you kind of get involved in? And because the mantra of change the world with media, you know, that resonates with you. And how did you kind of come to get involved in that type of stream?
Well, back in the day, I was like an experimental video artist and theater artist. um, and I had some amazing mentors. One, my ultimate mentor, Bob Devine, who actually just passed away, unfortunately. Shout out to Bobby D. Um,
And was that in
he
Ohio? Was that right?
That was at Antioch College, yeah, where I
Yeah.
went to school and worked for a few years.
Mm-hmm.
He taught a he taught a class called Making Media, Making Change, and um, he had actually worked to sort of help set up some of the framework of public access TV in the U.S.
That's cool.
And he loved my work in terms of being an experimental video artist, but him and other mentors also just challenged me to say, hey, you have a responsibility as an artist. You can't just go and make this ugly stuff that makes people uncomfortable. Like you have, you have a responsibility. Uh, and as much as I hated that, it was about the same time that the Telecommunications Act of '96 was passed, and that's where media consolidation became, from 14 companies to 7 or 6.
Hmm.
And I started to realize how important media was to the health of our democracy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if if the news channel doesn't carry the candidate, you don't know to vote for them.
Yeah.
And that there was real intentionality around those decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so I became a media activist, and I've that's that's what I've been doing for, oh God, almost 20 years, is trying to figure out ways to use technology and media to empower communities to make change.
Yeah.
And public access TV, because of my mentors and whatever, I just stumbled into it. But I also realized, man, from the mid 70s to when I started working professionally in the early 2000s, there had not been a refresh of the model,
Hmm. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And what what was looked at as social justice in 1975 was not looked at all in our field, or very little.
Hmm.
And so I sort of sunk my teeth in, and people somehow gave me leadership roles, and I've tried to apply that activism and my knowledge of all the legislative blah 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 and all that stuff to say, how do we take these cool, unique, powerful things, and this, I mean, we get a good amount of money from cable companies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Cable companies aren't doing us any good. So how do we leverage those funds to really do good in our community?
Yeah.
Um, so I'm still an activist at heart, but I see my role now as like, I can get into spaces where I can leverage power to help others shift their power.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so,
I guess, would you say then you're still an activist, but because of your role, I mean, you're administrator in some ways, right? I mean, how would you describe your role at CreaTV?
Like a cruise director?
Cruise
No.
director. Yeah.
I wish I was a cruise director. I think our organization, um, we sort of always walk a thin line, right? And I think my role in running these organizations is it straddles that line.
Yeah.
We have one foot in the government and we have one foot in the community,
Mm-hmm.
and we're trying to support both. And one is um, a lot of rules and regulations and um, providing good service for the kinds of things that cities do.
Yeah.
The other is in the community and says, what does the community need and who's not being heard? And in that space, I'm the activist, and in the other space, I'm an administrator.
Mm-hmm.
and
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
so it's like I'm in the past, I would be the rabble rouser. I would be
Right.
like, hey, that the police process you're doing right now is totally flawed, but
Yeah.
really our job now is to say, okay, who's working on those issues, and do they know their voice could be louder,
Yeah.
or do they know they could have access to these tools?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm an administrator, but I think ultimately my job in the contract ultimately is to serve the city of San Jose and the people that live here.
Yeah.
So, we have a city government, but we also have 1 million plus people.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a weird thing to do, Daniel. It's
Well,
not
it's kind of funny because I've always, heard there's always the kind of debate, between, oh, it's just an organization, and then people say, well, no, it needs to be more organic, like an organism. And then, I just laugh at that because it's like, well, an organism is extremely organized. Your body is very well organized, So yeah, so you're at that point, right, where you have those two kind of tensions, where you have it's an organism that's living and breathing, and yet there's organization to keep those processes going. What for you? Do you have like a personal life philosophy statement, mantra that you always come back to that kind of drives you?
Yeah, I think I was talking about my mission is to shift power wherever I see power needs to be shift, and I'm privileged as hell that I can walk down the street and not get pulled over. I can walk into the mayor's office and I can call the head of blah blah company,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so my mantra is like, how do I use that?
Yeah.
I would I always joke my goal is like to work myself out of a job. I don't want to do this, but systems keep hiring me to do this.
You're too darn employable.
It doesn't mean that I'm good, frankly, right? It's just that systems are like, well, the white guy sounds smart, put him in charge, and I'm like, okay, cool, thanks for putting me in charge. Now I'm going to try and subvert the entire system that got me here. And so,
well, not subvert, but improve, right? Yeah, right.
Yeah, no, I'm usually pretty transparent about the fact, but yeah, it is to improve. It's to look at every angle and see where those power balances exist and see what I can do as a human to fix that. I'm not a savior or anything, but I am lucky, right? So
yeah.
Fuck, I better use that.
Yeah. Awesome.
My college motto was "Be ashamed to die until you have won some victory for humanity."
Oh wow, that's cool.
That's Horace Mann, and
wow,
that's what I try to do, I guess.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Then that could be pretty tiring, right? To change the world through media to make one victory for humanity. What kind of keeps you going? How do you restore? How do you stay on target and on mission? Just on a personal level, not for CreaTV.
What do I do? I'm fortunate enough to have a little yard and a little garden.
Yeah, that's nice.
Getting my hands in the dirt, watching things grow. I have a million houseplants. I have a million little things growing all around me. What else do I do? Such a good question, Daniel. No, I cook a lot. That's one of my creative outlets. I'm a photographer every now and again, 35 millimeter.
Cool.
I love, there's something so great about the tangible, using your hands and the printing and trimming the mat board. And, I love that. It's expensive, so I don't do it all that much, but, yeah, I mean, back in the olden days, back when we used to see people and stuff, going out and seeing art and culture and people creating and making things, that fuels me. I love watching the creative process. I love watching people perform and music or theater or spoken word or any of that stuff. Man, that gets me going.
Yeah.
And rejuvenates the soul.
Yeah, that's cool. What do you? What's one of the things, your favorite dish to cook? What's kind of like your?
Oh God.
Kind of like your go-to, like you just love making it or something.
I love to make Persian kebab and tahdig.
Oh,
and tahdig, if you do it right, that's like half a day of letting the rice sit on the stove, and it's like really delicate process of making the rice like perfectly crispy, so it comes out in a little cake. And
sounds cool.
Carnitas, I've been perfect. Pandemic has really made me perfect my carnitas recipe.
You have the master COVID carnitas.
You're just like ordering groceries and you're like, yeah, sure, I better make carnitas. Why not? Yeah, good plan. Put them in little freezer bags and you got tacos for, a month. Anytime you want. Pull out the Ziploc.
Sounds cool. I'll drive by. Get my Uber to go by, or my DoorDash to go to your house. Hey, cool. So then what's coming up next? What's 2021? Is that what we're in here? Yeah, we're already into it, like a month. What is up next for the plans, the vision, the goal, all that kind of stuff you have to do for CreaTV? What's kind of like the dragons that you're going to slay in 2021 for CreaTV?
So glad you asked that question, Daniel.
You sent it to me to ask you that. No.
Give me 2 seconds. I actually need another fizzy water, so we're just gonna have to pause while I go to the fridge.
No problem. Take the carnitas out to defrost.
I gotta defrost the carnitas. Oh man, I'm almost out of grapefruit. Oh, jeez. This is real life now. If this goes in the podcast, I'm
actually going to keep it because I think it's fun. I'm trying to picture what kind of refrigerator do you have? Do you have like one of those old school with the big handle or?
No, man. The pandemic made rent really go down, and I lucked out on getting this cute little 1940s Spanish bungalow.
Oh, right.
But she renovated the hell out of it, so it's got a brand new fridge.
That's nice. Cool.
With like the drawer on the bottom, the big freezer drawer. Wow. Yeah. It's intense. So 2021 for CreaTV is going to be an interesting year. We have been working working for about 2 years on trying to, one, we need a home. So the building we've been in for 13 years is becoming a new kind of thing. So we needed a new home. Two, I've been having a lot of conversations, as you know, with SV Creates and other arts and culture organizations and other nonprofits, just about the challenge of space, right? It is expensive as hell. And so because of CreaTV's funding mechanisms, we sort of started playing around with the idea of building sort of a community center that would be rooted in what we do well, so building kind of community through media and technology, but also provide homes for arts, culture, information, other organizations that we could collaborate with to sort of do bigger impact, and also create a lot of public space where we could invite the rest of the community in to do all kinds of things. So we have actually secured a lease for at least 10 years, but almost we could stay there for 20.
Cool.
Right in the heart of downtown, in the old Zanotto's/tech shop.
Yeah.
And so we are 2021. We are
You're paying rent on a place you can't go into. No.
We're actually just, the pandemic actually lucked out for us. I was ready to sign a lease in March, and then I was like, let's just hold on a second and see what happens with this pandemic thing. And that worked out really well for us, actually.
Yeah.
So we're going to spend 2021 working with the community to figure out what they want out of a community space like this. Like if you could go and step into a room and record a podcast or do a Zoom presentation or do a dance performance or blah, 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 blah. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
How would you want that to run? And specifically for downtown, we're going to have a tremendous amount of growth in there's going to be less and less space again for a community to be a community. And so we wanted to create this kind of anchor space where we say, hey, this is San Jose, and no matter what Google comes up over there or Adobe or blah 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 or whatever it is, whatever flying car comes in next, there's going to be a place where San Jose can come together, and not just San Jose, but again with that sort of equity approach. We're really looking at building power, telling the stories of what San Jose was and what we really want it to become. How do we do that? And what do we need to do? And what technology will people need? And so 2021 is a lot of building and designing and thinking. And then 2022, we're going to open up this space, and we'll have folks like Chopsticks Alley Art and San Jose Works will hopefully have their gallery spaces there.
Cool.
San Jose Spotlight and NorCal Public Media, again, that information media folks. Maybe Red Ladder Theater.
Oh, cool.
El Teatro Visión.
Yeah.
We're really looking at bringing a diversity of folks in there to help us co-curate the space and co-design the space. And I keep calling it, like, it's not co-working, it's co-building. Like cool. we're really trying to build something here.
That's awesome. So it'll be a mixture. It'll be a mixture between, traditional TV studio / dance rehearsal hall spaces, classrooms, or I guess you're building it. So, but gallery space, bar, jacuzzi, underground. underground foot massage, or I mean,
whoa, Daniel, come on now. The idea that we're starting from is that we understand in normal times, right? There was always a challenge in finding affordable space, even if it's just for a meeting,
totally.
right?
Yeah.
So we've created we've created one big room. So imagine you could sit 120 people in there. That is one day a TV studio, the next day is a forum, the next day is Mighty Mike McGee, the next day is whatever, you name it.
Yeah, yeah.
And then 3 sort of medium spaces. They could be rehearsals. They could be the library does a wonderful reading show. They could come in to do their we share stories there. You could record your podcast in there.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Rather than
and then some
basement.
smaller and then some smaller spaces that would just be hey, we need a meeting, or hey, we're doing a podcast. But all the spaces are, the point is they're all sort of vanilla and flexible.
Yeah.
So that whatever you want them to be, they can be. Yeah. And the idea of it being a true community space is that, someone's going to come and say, well, we want to do Jello art around police brutality. And we're going to be like, how do we do Jello art? Cool. I don't know how to do that, but let us apply our technological skills to make sure everyone sees that Jello art. And then
I would really like to see that, actually. If you do get Jello art on police brutality, please let me know.
But then, I mean, the idea is that little radical arts organization, right, that's doing Jello art, right, then they get to connect with Works, and then they get to connect with San Jose Spotlight.
Yeah.
And then NorCal Public Media then puts it on PBS all over the Bay Area, right? It's to create this sort of really interesting mixing bowl of folks and skill sets, and just a truly equitable collaborative environment, right? Where we can adjust and pivot and let people influence as much as we're contributing to whatever they're doing.
So it's cool. It sounds like it has a real sense of the community, the creation of art and media, and then the distribution, access and mechanisms and knowledge, right, and channels, right?
That is exactly right. So we're calling it a synergy accelerator.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I'm thinking I'm thinking creation, community, and channels.
No, that's not that
good.
C.
Yeah, but the CH ruins it though. But yeah, that sounds really cool. I'm excited for that. Yeah, I know that you've been working on that for a while, and there's been, it's been a difficult road of different projects potentially happening, and so I appreciate all your stick-to-itness that's been going on.
It's been a process, but I think ultimately what has made it gel for the folks we've been working with, and we haven't really been. This is our first public announcement.
Well, yeah,
right,
I was wondering.
here
is this
on
public
content?
Yeah,
this is now officially public, with more to come soon.
Yeah.
But everyone we've been working with behind the scenes, the thing that's really brought people together and gotten people excited around this is it's not just like a place where you can come rehearse, or you can come do a performance, or you can come hang out and see an art exhibit. It's something that's truly focused on that equity piece and civic engagement, right? We have seen what's happened with the pandemic. We've seen the inequities. We've seen what's happening, right? In our communities around supremacy and systematic oppression and all these things. This is a place that we're really dedicating to continue working on these things, not in just like a essay, whatever.
Yeah.
But in a very bold and simple, like this is yours.
Yeah. Awesome.
So anyways, don't get me started, but
cool.
It'll be
no,
fun.
It sounds good. Yeah. That sounds like
2022.
2022.
All
right. Yeah.
We figure people will still be doing a lot of virtual stuff, but that's great because we'll have all the technology to do that. Cool. And then hopefully by 23, we'll just have that place filled every night of the week with something new and exciting.
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. That sounds very exciting. Awesome. Well, I really appreciate what you're doing, and just, it's great to talk to you, and haven't seen you in a while, and we'll have to get carnitas sometime soon.
You come by. I got a yard with a little fire pit, and I'll feed you a carnita and a beer.
Sounds nice. We'll have to wait till
6 feet apart.
Yeah, exactly. We have to wait till we get to the next. I forget what color. We're in purple, so when we get to what's below?
Yeah, when we get to
what's the next one?
I wish it was pink. Yeah, I wish they would choose these colors a little better.
I know. I'm not too thrilled with the color. Purple confuses me. But
it confuses me too. But anyway.
Yeah. So, well, awesome. I really appreciate your time, and we look forward to that. And how can people, well, I'll put in the show notes all the contacts, but what would be one particular thing that you'd say, hey, people, you got to check out this and all the different channels and platforms? What would be something, what's like your pick of the, I know you're going to get in trouble with the people you don't pick, but just pick what's your one of your favorites? One of your many favorites, just one for this.
Just one? Check out the outlet, Channel 30, or on our YouTube page, or on our soon-to-be brand new website with brand new logo and everything.
Yeah, awesome.
We also do a pretty good podcast.
Yeah.
And we link to your podcast on our podcast page.
Thank you.
And our new website. So we might have to have you on the podcast, but they don't let me. I'm not in charge of the podcast.
Yeah. You just do your activism and administration. Yeah. Okay, you're not the programming.
I'll just do the money stuff and sit in the back, try and leverage power, and let other people do the fun stuff.
Cool. Awesome, Chad. Well, I really appreciate it, and I do hope to see you out in public soon.
We will.
Yeah.
We're on the home stretch. 2022.
Woo! All right. Talk to you later.
Thanks, Daniel. Bye.
Bye. Find out more about CreaTV, their programs, and their podcast, Two People Talking, from their website at creatvsj.org, and follow them on Instagram at CreateTV. Thank you for listening to the Content Magazine podcast. Follow us on social media at Content Mag. Visit our website to become a member and help us to continue to tell the stories of the local creatives. This episode's music is Time Alone by Mild Monk. Follow him on Spotify and also on his Instagram at Mild Monk Music.